They are trained to ignore the periphery, ignore everything around you, which is one of my favorite things that we see the college gymnastics distraction beam routines where you have people all over the beam screaming and waving noodles and laying under the beam and, doing all that stuff. And you're trained to
waving noodles. I imagined when you said that, like pasta. Like plates of pasta, waving some noodles at your beam routine.
The show is PG-13, so you might hear a naughty word or two.
This month, Tumble Track is having an inventory reduction sale. It's 15% off lots of goodies like parallettes, so you can practice holding handstands for hours and doing press-ups in your hotel room or wherever you are, like Chelsea Memel in her travel videos. So visit Tumble Track at TUMBLTRAK, tumbletrack.com, train smart. Aly Raisman made her analyst debut for a college gymnastics meet, and it was glorious. We're going to discuss. It was an epic week for corrupt or correct. Maybe the week that finally forces coaches to bring the hammer down on judging. No Melanie at Classic this year because we cannot have nice things. And important additions to the pantheon of beam saves this week. It's January 22nd, and welcome to the #1 gymnastics podcast in the galaxy. I'm Jessica, and I'm here with Spencer from the Balance Beam Situation, which every week, I don't know if you know this, but the Balance Beam Situation every week has all the correct scores and links for your college gymnastics meets. So you can just go on there week 3, week 4, and find all the meets you want to watch with a link. For all the people that have texted me for the last 3 weeks asking where to find these, balancebeamsituation.com, you guys. It's the best. Speaking of college gymnastics meets, what's our schedule this week, Spencer?
College and Cocktails, Friday night, 7 p.m. Pacific. So that's January 26th. We're watching 2 meets. We're watching Alabama and Florida. That's an ESPN2 meet. And we're going to watch Denver against Oklahoma, which is a rematch because Oklahoma was just at Denver, and now Denver's at Oklahoma. Going to be a fun one. I'm sure the scoring will be great. This week showed us that it's getting normal. It's going to be fine.
Yeah. This week's drink is exhibition.
Ooh.
Yes.
We're going in exhibition? Do we become an exhibitionist after drinking this drink?
Who was it that called a gymnast an exhibitionist?
There are graphics all the time on all sorts of broadcasts that were like, exhibitionist? I was like, that's not what that word means. That is something different.
We only had 700,000 people watch the meet this week. Let's see if we add exhibitionist to what happens. Okay. I have a very important headline. And
okay. Is this a real very important headline or a joke very important headline?
It's just, obviously to everyone's feelings, a very important headline, which is my favorite kind of headline. So the Simone versus Taylor Swift Bowl is
a joke, very important headline was the answer there.
It is not to be everyone who cared about the sports ball thing that happens with a lot of advertisements. It's not happening. So just so you know, Taylor Swift might be there, but no Simone. Also, a correction from last week. Simone does 2-a-days, 4 days a week, but she does work out on weekends. So she still works out 6 days a week. So according to the Vanity Fair article. So 2-a-days, only 4 days a week.
I'm going to register at this point my deep offense that you started with football thing. Before
it's not
you even talk about
thing. I said Simone and Taylor Swift.
Yeah, but we all know what you're talking about.
Listen, I never said the word football. You said it. Let the record show.
You spent too much time working in a legal firm, and now you're throwing these things in my face.
So we got an exciting video this week. Let's discuss. Okay. What did we see?
Yes. Oh, the Gabby training from Gabby. Inside Gym. The Gabby training. How could I forget? Okay, so routines. Let's talk about them. Ling to piked Jaeger.
Yes.
And then a Stalder something. Stalder to be continued. It was very much like a cliffhanger video.
Yeah.
Like she didn't want to be continued.
I think it was a release. My exciting things that she could be doing, because I think that Stalder goes into release. So a Downy, which would be a pike to Kodchev out of that Stalder after the Lang and pirouette. A Durwell Fenton. So do a half turn on that to Kodchev.
Just add a half turn always.
It's easy. Or are you ready? Okay. She does a straddled Stalder, half pirouette, to a Yazova to a
Okay.
Van Leeuwen.
Into it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yezhova. Also, there's some new, have you gotten this advertisement for some new drug that is, because you can do that on TV in the United States. It used to be illegal, but now they can do it. And it's like called a Yezhova or something that's so close to it that every time
no.
I'm like,
What's it for?
I think it's like menopause or something.
Oh,
It's on
well,
the
yeah.
regular TV. So I had to see, I kept coming up during like hot flashes. I don't know.
That's your next T-shirt, Yezhova, the cure for hot flashes.
I've had to watch so many regular TV commercials lately because it's gymnastics season.
Gross. I know it's a boring answer, but I do like, because it's way more fun to say like name releases that Gabby could be doing out of the Stalder, but mostly I just want pirouettes because Gabby Stalder pirouettes. I'm like, like Gabby doing a front Stalder half turn is in L grip is my Nabieva.
Yeah.
Like that's all I need. Yeah.
Yeah. I understand that. And then of course we saw her switch ring on beam, which is the most.
So a little bit of beam, but mostly it was like, what's she doing on bars? You guys, it's happening. It's happening.
So looking forward to that interview and finding out on Inside Gym. So congrats to them. Spencer, do you remember last year when I can't remember if we talked about this on the regular show or just on the bonus stuff for Club Gym Nerd members, but we talked about how Suni was training a full twisting Jaeger in practice that she didn't show in the competition she competed at last year. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm.
So today she put up video of it. So we finally get to see this. So exciting. So she is doing her full twisting Jaeger and it's freaking beautiful. And it's perfect. And it's laid out.
And she posted 3 different videos of it just to be like, if you think this is one of those things that I've caught once in the gym and then never did again and posted a video of, no, here are 3 of them.
It's so, so, so good. And so we know at least she's been doing this for a year. So that probably means she's had this skill since she was like 7 and now she's posting. It's so good. I mean, it's so rare to see this skill. We mostly see it on men's high bar because they don't have to worry about the stupid low bar getting in the way of their swing, but it's Suni. So she's been posting a lot. She posted some beam. Oh my God, it's so good. So, oh God, please. I just want her to be so healthy and make a team because she's so amazing. Her gymnastics is so beautiful. Please, please, please. Suni. Duh. Everyone pray to the medical gods that she gets everything worked out and is healthy and can come back. Because can you imagine a team? Gabby Douglas, Simone Biles, Suni Lee, and 2 other people.
I can, because we've talked about it a lot. I can imagine it and have.
Oh, so excited. I am very upset because we got earlier this week the International Elite Committee. So this is USAG's committee that discusses and makes the rules for the elites, and we found out they hate gymnastics. Is that?
Oh yeah, that's a fair summary. So the big part of their minutes this month from their meeting was the recommendation that, quote, foreign athletes are not eligible to participate in Winter Cup, American Cup, or US Classic. So okay. Before we talk about why I hate this, which I do, I have a question. Because, so clear, as just background, Melanie de Jesus dos Santos of France trains at World Champion Center, competed last year at US Classic, and it was perfect. And we got to see her compete at a US meet, and she got to compete with the coaches that she trains with all the time, and she did great, and we all loved it. And therefore, that was too much fun, and it had to be destroyed. My question is this just an anti-Melanie rule, or does it extend to those with U.S. citizenship who are registered with a different country with the FIG, like an Aaliyah Finnegan, like an Luisa Blanco? Like, what does foreign mean? It's a really ambiguous term, and kind of like, you can't just say, oh, you can't compete if you're foreign. Like, what is foreign?
Right.
And I think I was thinking about this because we saw that Charlotte Booth, who has competed elite in the U.S., announced that she has dual citizenship with the UK, and she's competing at Welsh championships and English championships this year, but also in her post about it didn't really commit to anything and was like, I'm going to keep my options open. And I was wondering if that was a specific reaction to this rule, like, I don't want to do anything that's going to get me considered foreign so that I can still maybe compete at like classic should I want to. So I do have a question about the logistics and who this extends to. But also, if you would like to just start complaining about how much we hate this, feel free.
Yeah, I have reached out to USAG to ask for clarification specifically on this. I would hate for this to be a reaction to how much attention Melanie got and how many tickets were sold just for Melanie, because that crowd.
We know that, but still.
No, but I mean, before Simone was official, we knew Melanie was competing. I think that's how it worked. And oh my God, that crowd knew Melanie.
Mm-hmm.
They freaked out for Melanie. They were excited for Melanie. It was deafening in there. It was deafening for Simone, and then it was a deafening adjacent for Melanie, because our gymnastics fans are smart and they know what's up. What I don't understand about this is, like, good for, Brian Carey and Katie Carpenter, who, were like, hey, let's not have any Melanies at this because they take too much attention. Like, their job is to advocate for their athlete, and they're going to do what they're going to do. But I understand their perspective about that. But the thing is, like, what I don't understand about this is, in lots of other sports, you want the best in the world to come to compete. And I know, like, a lot of the US coaches and the elite committee will be like, we are the best in the world. Well, not really, because Russia beat you at the last Olympics, by the way. But you want to compete alongside who your real competition is in the world. You want to see how that person trains. You want to be in a competition with them. What I really think the threat is Melanie doing floor, and all, like, the top elites getting put on blast by her routines about how many artistry deductions they're going to get in their floor routines. So I think that's the threat they're really trying to come through with, and they did not want. But I don't like it. And I think it's depriving so many opportunities for an audience. Like, can you imagine? I mean, not just women's gymnastics, but think about men's. Like, there's so many foreign athletes who are in foreign, who compete in college gymnastics, right? And so depriving the audience of seeing those athletes. And imagine you could have a whole rotation of Paris qualified Olympians. So we can have an Aaliyah, Melanie, United Nations of College, whoever wants to compete at Classic or Winter Cup or whatever. So I just think that would be so fun.
They would all come out with their flags. It would be like the international rotation group. Yeah, it's like you missed opportunity. Yeah. And it feels short-sighted, because I also feel like you're intentionally depriving yourself of reaching new audiences. Like, as we said, I don't know if a Luisa Blanco type is going to be Luisa Blanco type, but, someone who's competed for the U.S. before and now is, representing Colombia and qualified for the Olympics, if she's going to be allowed. But, like, you're missing out on the person who is, like, doesn't know anything about gymnastics, but reads about Luisa Blanco and it's like, oh, she's like me. We have the same heritage. I'm also a Colombian American. Isn't it cool that she qualified to the Olympics? I want to support her. Maybe I'll watch this competition. And that's a new audience that you have an opportunity to reach. And so that's also why it feels short-sighted, not to be like, yes, let's welcome everyone, because you're expanding the opportunities for what audience you can reach.
Yep. I feel like the other thing about this, just from a straight up monetary perspective, if Simone and Gabby don't compete at Classic, say Gabby goes to Winter Cup, which I doubt is happening, but I don't know, maybe she is, or Gabby qualifies some other way and Simone doesn't have to compete at Classic. If they're not competing, Melanie will sell a lot of tickets, you guys. I'm just saying, if USAG is still in that terrible TV contract. So
that's what they're worried about. Melanie's going to win this time.
So, but I mean, at least here's the one justice we have for Melanie right now is that Ellie Black is currently in the country, or was at the country at some point, and she was training and hanging out, staying with Melanie and training at WCC with Simone and everybody. So at least Melanie's with Ellie Black right now, which is
I like that your news was Ellie Black was at some point in the United States of America, which is just such important news because it like immediately makes it better.
It does.
Like just sprinkle a little Canadian wonderful on this country and try to like fix what you can.
Try to be more like Ellie Black, International Elite Committee.
Really?
That's all we're asking.
Would Ellie Black have said no foreign athlete participation? I ask you.
Never.
Okay,
speaking of USA Gymnastics decisions.
Okay.
So athletes and coaches were surprised 48 hours before the last camp started, Spencer, that they got an email about how there was a documentary crew that USAG had partnered with who would be at every camp going forward. And they were like, we have some questions. We have some questions about this. So they weren't given, there was no time, obviously, for people's agents to look over anything or ask questions or no contracts, nothing, and I'm sure their national team agreement says that, that they can do this, which is, that's part of being on the national team. I feel this is why Gabby does not want to be added to the national team because she doesn't put up with any of this nonsense. But and I say nonsense as a joke because I actually love the idea of a documentary crew being at all the camps. But so there were no specifics on editorial control, where it would air, who, where this was going to end up in the end. So people had a lot of questions. And I did reach out to USA Gymnastics for a statement. And they said, quote, as we did in 2021, USA Gymnastics has engaged an independent production company to document the journey of the national team in the run up to the Olympics. So I was like, engaged? Yeah. Who was 2021? Did we ever get that documentary?
They all blur together. There were definitely some things that happened.
Would that be golden? But I thought they just got like access. But anyway, I don't know. So my understanding is that athletes, and coaches can opt out if they want to. And it's not about camp, it's about the journey of the team. Yeah. But, it's another thing of like, there should be specifics. This should be done well ahead of time. People should be allowed to, given more time to have more questions answered before you show up at camp and there's like a giant crew. And obviously it should all be women, by the way. That's the other thing. Also, there's a lot of onboarding with people who haven't shot gymnastics before.
Or should be.
Right. My God. As we've talked about many times with all the people that I've said I would drag by the hair out of a college gymnastics meet for almost murdering gymnasts. So, Spencer, what do you think the pros and cons of this kind of arrangement would be? And
I think it's thank you. I think it's a pro. You want to be able to watch it. You want to see the journey of the team. It's good for the athletes. It's good for the sport. It's good for the team. Having the documentary, I think, is a win-win positive. Of course, one would want there to be more information, foresight, opportunities to see, like, make sure, if my instinct as an athlete, if I heard about it, 48 hours in advance would be like, oh, no, I'm going to opt out because I haven't had time to Google, like, is this backed by, Dick Cheney Productions, or like, where is this, who made this, or where is this going, or like, what are we doing here? I would not trust it. Like, my immediate instinct would be to not trust it. But it feels kind of like old time USAG move, like, oh, where there's a documentary crew and we're going to do this and everyone's going to be in it because we're in charge of you and we decide what media you do and what interviews you can do, like in Aly's book, talking about like they decided who could interview her and who she couldn't, or who couldn't interview her. That kind of thing feels like old time USAG, but they're able to opt out. So I think that's fine. Like, if you don't trust it, if you aren't sure, you have the freedom to opt out of it. So you want more notice, but I think overall I'm pro having a documentary follow the team. So
I think it's an opportunity to show what they've changed. Like, you could show all the people from the USOPC who come in now, like, there's an actual dietitian, there's nutrition education, there's a psychologist, there's mental health, like, workshops, there's the new medical changes, like all the women that are there, the food. It's not canned. What were they eating in Elisa Sacramone that time? Some kind of canned fruit.
It was just like one tomato slice on a plastic fork is all I remember.
It's also an opportunity for those gymnasts who probably aren't going to make the Olympic team to build their NIL profiles. before they go to college, like Nola Matthews. I would just follow Nola and be like, this is the teammate you want on your college team. She's amazing.
Yeah, like a documentary that's just like how Nola builds a floor routine. That's a whole documentary right there. You're done.
Oh my God.
Yeah, like if I am, if I've been to an Olympics before, if I'm one of those, I'm like, I don't need this. Like, I'm sure Simone's got all kinds of her own things going on. Like,
yes.
I don't need this. But if I'm not, Simone, yeah, I want to be in this.
Yep. Like, fill me.
Yeah.
Okay. We must discuss the most healing moment. I can't even talk about it. Spencer, God damn it.
Are you gonna start crying again?
Oh my God,
Jessica's cried about this so many times. Fact checker had to text me to tell me about her crying while this was going on. So just that's the preface for us talking about Aly Raisman's commentary debut. With, as one of our commenters in College and Cocktails said, her emotional support, Lynn Raisman, which was my favorite part of it, was seeing Lynn Raisman just right there in the back, like, I'm here.
Aly's mom being like, noticing she was in the back and then leaning whoosh, out of the way, like, what? I didn't realize I was going to be on camera, but we loved it. You guys, it was so amazing and healing and beautiful and happy and joyful and the best debut as a commentator on a gymnastics broadcast since Kennedy Baker, I would say.
Which was like last year. But yes, I thought she definitely like started the season. She was well prepared from her preseason training. She definitely hit her first meet for a 197. Definitely like overperformed. She didn't count a fall. Overperformed expectations. Yeah.
It was like all of the, like, if you've needed your soul to be healed after the last 10 to 7 years, this helped. It was watch the LSU Kentucky meet with the sound on, so you can just hear.
That was
Aly.
a note for me.
Spencer. Also, I think like Aly and John Roethlisberger were a good match. Like, I loved hearing her talk about like technique and her sort of like coaching while she was watching. I've noticed the networks are doing that more. Like Sam Pesek was doing that a little more. Like, I would like to see this. And this is why that happened. Like, what skills she liked to watch, who winked at her during their floor routine. Like, it was just great. So anyway, you guys, I have to like wipe off my my glasses now. Because,
there was just some local dew. There was some moisture in the air. It had nothing to do with crying. Yeah, I think the trap that a lot of recent athletes who move to commentary fall into is that they're very concerned about seeming too critical or and so everything becomes like, she did an amazing job and she did an amazing job and that was great and I love her and I love this and I love this, which isn't really analysis. And so that was my concern. I was like, is Aly just going to be like, great job, great job, great job? But we got enough of like, this is what a deduction is.
Yeah.
To, I feel like, have a balance there.
Yeah. She did her homework. It's Aly. It was, yeah. Oh, made me so happy. Okay, before we talk about the college headlines, because we have a lot to talk about, specifically the Tennessee.
Specific one thing that happened in Tennessee. Yeah.
Yes. The Tennessee turning point, as I have dubbed it from now on, because hopefully it is a turning point. Okay, so some GymCastic updates. We are going to U.S. camp again. So the U.S. Elite Camp, we're going in February. We are going because of our Club Gym Nerd members. So because you guys send us to this camp, we will do an episode from camp. So, and there will be bonus content just for club members. So make sure you're a club member, gymcastic.com, so you can get the full episode from camp. It'll probably be on a Tuesday morning, which, so just log in from work. It'll be fine. But you can always listen to it later because you can add the behind the scenes stuff to your favorite podcast player. And of course, there'll be a lot for our regular audience as well. We have a new fantasy gymnastics update YouTube show. You guys, like the sports balls get, but it's for gymnastics. So it's a quick weekly, like 10-minute, all the news you need for fantasy, who the steals are, who's on a buy, who's a great deal, how to get an easy 10, or who are the people that you should get for a 10 if you're attempting to get a 10. It's very
unlike Jessica, who will only attempt to get a 10 if it's genuinely from the soul and it speaks to the spirit of the code. Otherwise, she would prefer a 0.
as I proved once again this week by getting yet again another 0. And I will never, never take Adeline Kenlin off my team. I don't care what happens. I don't care if she's on a bye. I don't care. Also,
she just competed.
I know she just did, and she never gets a 0. But also, Spencer's in the top 50, you guys. He's moving up there.
I don't understand how, because I got another 0 this week.
I got another 0 again, but my score's like 188 with a 0.
Yeah.
That's how good my team is. Just FYI, you guys. We have a virtual live show season pass. This means that you can get 4 virtual live show tickets for the price of 3. You get 1 whole show for free. Why are we doing this? Because the Olympic year is super expensive. So you guys have already helped because we were able to buy our tickets to go to camp, and we are going to buy our tickets to the Olympics finally because we haven't been able to buy our flights yet. So the live shows are going to be NCAs as usual with a costume contest. So get your Sarah Patterson and Susan Yauklin outfits ready, you guys. Gonna have a full, I want your full cosplay is what we're having. That's always super fun. We're having one at Olympic trials. We're going to have a virtual one probably from the Olympics, and then we're going to have one in the fall. So for this year, but the virtual tickets are only on sale till we have our first live show, and then you can't get them anymore. So thanks to everybody who's already bought one because you guys have really helped us. The GymCastic Fantasy League. There's our fantasy league where Spencer is in the top 50. Week 4, we're adding a mini commission. So our week 1, 2, and 3 winners, you guys are getting a something in the mail. It's a surprise. And this week's winner, this upcoming week, is getting a mini commission. So you can make us talk about for 10 minutes-ish, whatever you want, as long as it's tangentially gymnastics related. And we mean whatever you want for 10 minutes. So check it out at GymCastic.com. And
what if I win, though? What happens if I'm in first? Do I get a mini commission where I get to make Jessica talk about whatever I want?
Yes.
Thank you.
You do.
That is the correct answer.
Yeah. But you know that if it's math, it will all be backwards and upside down.
Yeah, that's the point.
Yes.
I'm just gonna make Jessica do like long division for 10 minutes. And you have to do it out loud.
You know what makes great audio? Listening to someone do math.
I know. It's great.
Exciting. I just want to clarify, the virtual season pass expires. You can't get it anymore once our first live show happens. Not the virtual tickets. You can get virtual tickets later.
The deal expires.
Deal ends.
Limited time only, fine print at the bottom of the screen. Deal expires April whatever for our live show at NCAAs.
Yeah. Which I'm so excited for. Okay. College gymnastics headlines.
Yeah. Okay. So if you were not glued to the internet every single moment, you may not have known. There was on Friday a multi-team, multi-session meet in Tennessee. 7 teams were there. No video coverage. And when the cats are away, the mice will play, apparently, is what we learned about meets where there's no video coverage. So all 7 teams were there at this meet, scored program records all at the same time on the same day in the same meet. You know how it happens totally naturally. Most by more than a fall. Ball State with a 198.025 by more than a point higher than their previous program record. SEMO by almost a point. Kent State, Lindenwood, Whitewater by about 0.7. So everyone was like, It wasn't things that make you go, It was more things that make you go, like things that make you go, brackets Roy Kent sound is basically what this was.
Let me just repeat that for a second. All 7 teams got program records at the same meet. All 7 teams. And program records. So since the inception of these teams, which may have been like the 70s to now. Yeah. Just to emphasize the statistical, which we did not do the math, but the statistical probability of this is probably like 0.0000000.
So my first thing is that I think the teams that were there shouldn't have posted any videos of these routines and all of the 10s that they got, because then we'd have to pretend like if we hadn't seen them and we came on the show, we'd have to be like, well, we haven't seen the routine. We haven't seen the routine. It might have been, the best routine that's ever possibly happened. The equipment might have been special at this meet. The magician came in and magicked the equipment so that your form was perfect. Like, we don't know. That could happen. These are this science that's realistic. That could happen. But then we started to see the video, and we lost, I guess, the plausible deniability, because we're seeing routines that got 10s, and these are very good routines. It's kind of like, it needs to be said that, like, Ball State, which has gotten the most attention because it got a 198 and they won the meet, is a very good team. And they competed again on Monday. And at a meet that was like normal college gymnastics loose scoring, but like normal college gymnastics scoring. And they got a 196.6 for a hit meet, because they're a really good team and they should qualify to regionals. So it's not like they should be getting 191s and they suddenly got a 198, but we're seeing routines that got 10s that, like, you did a good job for like 9.8 or 9.85. And this is a meet. It feels like, seeing what we've seen from this meet, because we haven't, obviously haven't seen everything. It feels like an example of what would happen if you just said, like, it's when we exaggerate to talk about how ridiculous college scoring can be, where we're like, what happens in the air stays in the air. They don't deduct for leg separations. They don't deduct for flex feet. They don't deduct for missed split positions. It's like, if you actually judged that way all the time, you would get the scores that we got in this meet. Basically, that's what happens, which is incredibly frustrating for us watching, or for teams that weren't at this meet, because every score that's given out in college gymnastics, it's not meet specific. It affects all 87 teams. It affects over 1,000 gymnasts, because the whole point of it is how they rank relative to each other and what their score is. So you have to think about the gymnast who wasn't there, who would have qualified to regionals, but now won't, because it was fun to hand out some really high scores that didn't really adhere to the code of points at this meet in Tennessee. Like, that's the responsibility that college judges have. It's like, every routine, every score you give could be the score that ends someone's career because they're a senior and they didn't make regionals. Every score you give could be the score that loses a coach their job because their team ranks too low too many times. And now which is why that's an incredible amount of pressure. And that's really, like, overwhelming to think about. But it's why you have to be able to justify every score exactly by the code of points. And also why the NCAA should have its own code of points that's way more specific than the JO code of points to help everyone do this. But that's an additional issue. But so that's why it's particularly frustrating to me, because it feels like it's not taking, when you score so differently than other meets are being scored, and it's not able to be justified by the code, you're doing a disservice to everyone else.
Yep. And I think, and again, I just want to emphasize, as we've done over and over and over for years and years, we're talking about the judging. We are not talking about the gymnast, who I'm stoked for. Good for them.
Yeah. I'm like, oh my God. If I were a Ball State gymnast, I would be like, you know what I'm doing? I'm deleting Twitter and I'm going out to celebrate. Instagram, take a break, because we are partying for like 2 weeks. See you later.
Exactly.
I'm shocked they were able to hit on Monday and get a 196. I would be like, wow, you got some sleep. You got some sleep after that 198. That's an overperformance.
So, I mean, this is the thing that I want to talk about with this is, we should be calling this segment now. We've had, Corrupt or Correct has been a segment we've had on the show for 100 years. But it should now be called, based on the Tennessee tipping point, as I'm calling it, this meet, it should now be called Corrupt or Genius.
Okay.
Because, let me explain to you. This is why. We're not saying, obviously, as Spencer just said, that these are accurate in the code. But obviously, we also know that the judges are told not to actually judge by the code in their trainings.
And some more than others, I should say.
So we're going to call this. So the thing is, I think this is the tipping point, because, like, let's say if the judges had scored this like an Oklahoma versus Florida meet, we'd all roll our eyes and we'd be like, oh, these 10s are crazy. And we'd shrug and move on to the next weekend, not really giving it another thought, because like that happens all the time with the top teams. We know that their 10s aren't 10s. We know that they're not being judged by the code. But because it's Ball State and Kent State and Lindenwood, who are not the powerhouse teams, who are not the people that have won national championships, that's why everyone is reacting way more, because these teams aren't supposed to get these scores. And this is what I love about what happened. This is what I love about the Tennessee tipping point. I'm really trying to make that a thing.
I can tell.
Yeah. So my hope is that by scoring this way, the judges are going to force the coaches' hands, finally, that the power coaches who have benefited from this kind of judging for years and years, they'll be so pissed that they actually do something about it. And because the thing is, like, you can't, and let this lesson from gymnastics apply to the world around you.
Do you like doing that?
Sports for life lesson. You can't
bringing gymnastics stories into how they apply to the real world. You've never done that before, so it's brand new. Yeah, okay.
You can't expect people in control to dismantle a system that benefits them. I don't know if you've seen this ever in the history of...
I'm really liking this new class warfare theory of gymnastics that you're going for here. I love it.
If you were looking for a topic for a paper, I've just given it to you.
There you go.
So the things that need to happen to fix... So if you guys aren't familiar with this, how this works, the way that college judging works is there is a outside organization, the Women's WAGC, I can never remember the acronym. Women's Judging Association.
National Association of Women's Collegiate Judges. Or no, that's the National Association of Women's Gymnastics Judges.
Yes.
All of them.
Which has college judges in it, right. And it's, a volunteer organization that runs on their own, regulates themselves, and the way that they assign the judges and the way that they're evaluated is that the coaches who depend on their scores for their jobs evaluate them. So there's no problems with it. It's perfectly fine. So the thing that needs to happen is that the NCAA needs to finally stop saying that the NCAA, the $3 billion organization, doesn't have any money, and they need to professionalize judging and actually hire the judges within the NCAA like other sports do. The NCAA only does this for regionals and championships right now. And they need to have a real independent evaluation system. Like the FIG system seems to be great and works really well, and the judges are very consistent in the FIG system. That's something that already exists. Apply it. You got $3 billion over there that you're spending on dumb stuff like sports ball. So spend it on gymnastics, which is a huge sport and extremely popular. So the coaches need to insist on these changes or it will never change. And so I hope there's honestly more meets like this.
Yeah.
And scene.
I mean, but I don't hope there are more meets like this because I'm actually not optimistic that this will change anything. But I love your energy.
I mean, I don't want this for any of the athletes. I don't want it for the coaches, but I want there to be actual change made. And so, whatever has to happen so that judging is accurate finally. Because, I say this every year. I don't pay attention to the judging because if you do, it'll drive you crazy. You can't enjoy the sport. So I totally ignore it. And I just am Brooklyn Moors because Brooklyn Moors. That's all I care about. I never look at the scores. Okay, let's discuss the 10s.
Yeah, so as we mentioned, we had, quite a few 10s, many of them in Tennessee, but I wanted to bring it a little more positive. Go through what we thought was the 10niest of the 10s. Like if you were to rank the 10s, what you felt was the 10niest. And my submission is Lily Smith's bars routine for Georgia. I'm like, yeah. Lily Smith, we talked about her before the season. Because anyone who watched her JO gymnastics for a second was like, oh my God, she's going to get so many 10s in college. Like, it was like you laughed at how many 10s you could see her getting in her level 10 gymnastics. So not a surprise, but so precise. I was like, yes, I don't have anything. Fine with it.
And I agree with this. This to me was the 10iest 10. And we obviously you're mispronouncing it. It's actually Lily Baby Nastia Smith.
Mm.
Just in case.
So frustratingly, you know how I was calling her brunette Nastia? Turns out people can change their hair color.
Oh,
which is really unhelpful if you give them a nickname based on their hair color.
Yeah.
I learned that, and I don't like it.
So rude. Spencer, I just want to give a 10 for my feelings. Not real 10s. So the most important thing is I want to talk about Alexis Ortega at NC State. And she's done this skill for a million years, but I just want to talk about it again. She does a back handspring and nodi, and every year it's perfect. And her form is so good, and her legs are straight, and her toes are pointed. And it's so hard. You guys. A back handspring and nodi is so hard. That's why you so rarely see it. And I know she's done this for years, but every time it's just as good. Also, I'm impressed that she can do that, and her back is still flexible at this level in college. So anyway, I just want to give a shout out to her. And then let's talk about Suki Pfister, who this got yet another 10, as she does. Let's watch her vault. Suki Pfister, part of the Ball State tens of tens.
Yes.
So Suki Pfister it's beautiful. It's a handspring front pike half. It's gorgeous. She does straddle a lot on the pre-flight. But as we know in college gymnastics, pre-flight vault doesn't matter. Just ask, who was it from Russia who did that vault forever that looked like she was going to die?
I mean, you'll have to be more specific, but I think you mean Maria Paseka?
Yes, Paseka. Exactly.
But I mean, who from Russia did a vault that looked like they were going to die? I'm like, okay, where's the list?
Everyone? It's the Paseka technique. But anyway, once she hits the vault, freaking gorgeous. It's beautiful. Like Sage Kellerman. Sage Kellerman, man, if you don't have her in your fantasy, whew, you're missing out. So let's talk about the rankings and what happened this week, because I'm very excited about the rankings. Well, most of them.
Whoa, that is new for you. I thought you were going to be, let's talk about the rankings, because I don't care about these stupid numbers, and they aren't even ranked by my feelings. So rather than going through a list, I want to talk about what we find to be the most surprising or unexpected rankings through the first, at this point, 3 weeks of the season. Team category for today. Maybe next week or the week after we'll do all around, or individual events. So team, in terms of teams lower than we would have expected, I'm going to say UCLA ranking in 15th after 3 weeks, lower than what I would have expected.
Me too. And because this is the interesting thing, it's like not their gymnastics, it's their consistency. When's the last time Mars has fallen twice in a row?
She didn't fall twice in a row, but
in 2 weeks, right? Didn't she fall both weeks?
Frida Esparza has fallen on both her routines.
Oh, yeah.
But it's a lot of people who have beautiful routines UCLA ended up counting a fall on bars this past week because Esparza and Mars Frazier both fell. Both people you would have in your ideal bars lineup, but both of them fell. And it's interesting because it's not like a slow start for UCLA as a historical program is a surprising development, but none of the people who were there when that reputation was created are there anymore. It's a completely new coaching staff. It's a completely new program. And last year with this coaching staff, they started very quickly, and we're getting 197s, 197.8 in the first couple of weeks. So this is, and it's not, as you said, it's not a preparedness thing. It doesn't look like a preparedness thing. Like they were ready to hit those floor passes. Floor looks great.
Which was always a problem in the past.
And floor is this team's best event, like by a million miles.
Yeah. I mean, thank God they have Emma Malabuyo and Caitlin Rosen still there.
What happens when Malabuyo goes to Cairo and Cottbus to do her World Cups? I'm like, ooh, what happens to the bars lineup when Malabuyo's there? When she has to go to Cairo and do Gym Nova equipment, and then go to Cottbus and do Spieth equipment, and then come back to NCAA.
Yeah.
I don't think she's planning to do bars at the World Cup events, but
I feel like I didn't think there would be like a depth issue when Jordan left, but clearly there's like kind of a depth issue in some places. and it's unexpected. So Florida's an 8th.
Yeah.
And we kind of talked about this because they lost a lot of people.
Yeah. And it's only been 2 meets for Florida. Most of the other teams have had 3. So they haven't had as many opportunities to get a high score. But this is like the last time Florida was ranked this low at this point in the season was 2012. So even though 8th is still like kind of a high ranking, it's very unusual to see Florida with a digit like 8 next to the word Florida instead of like 2 or 3. And so we'll have to see whether this is like part of the process of redeveloping these routines or whether we've seen a hierarchy change.
Yeah. And then we have Michigan in 10th.
Yeah, which is mostly because of that first meet where they got a 195. But I think it's surprising because Michigan is one of those teams that we talk about that, especially in the championship year, have made their mark the last couple of years by being exceptionally ready for the first meet.
Yes.
And like, oh, our floor routines are like, our open full twisting double tucks are ready on January 1st.
We don't need no chalk to grab the back of our thighs to make these skills.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
This year, one of the trends in NCAA this season is like grabbing the back of your thighs is out.
Yeah.
It's just open passes. Open passes are nothing.
Exactly. Where it used to be so rare. Like, look at her hands by her side. She's not clutching for her life.
Mm-hmm.
She can do it. Yeah. It's interesting.
Like Madison Ulrich, the freshman at Denver, can do a double lay, but she's doing an open double tuck, which I think is interesting. But almost like if the double lay isn't like all the way perfect, a more impressive choice if you can do your open double tuck, because then people are like, ooh, an open double tuck.
So
you get that ooh moment.
I want someone to do real flare hands, like just hold them in like Buddha pose, do the Zen, or do like holding the egg. You know what I mean? Your ballet fingers while you're doing it. It's very hard though, but I bet she could do it. Okay, back to Michigan in 10th though, because like everyone stayed. Like they have so many people from that national championship winning team. But okay,
we don't have Natalie Wojcik in every high school anymore, which I think is a big influence.
The people I'm super excited about, Cal in 2nd, where they should have been for years and years, and finally they're there.
But I think that is like, in terms of positive ranking, higher than you expected surprises. I would not have picked Cal in 2nd for multiple weeks now. Yeah. And developing kind of a margin. Like the team, they have an average over 197.5 right now, and it's not going to be easy for those teams at like 197.0 to catch them quickly. So they're banking some scores right now. And that is, I guess if you're Cal, that's what you have to do because they don't have the championship reputation. And so we've seen this year in and year out with teams that are moving in, whether it was Oklahoma when they started being a top team or Michigan, like we just talked about. One of the ways to do that is starting really fast and having a really high ranking at the beginning. So then everyone's like, oh, Cal's in 2nd. I have an excuse to give Maddie Williams a 10 on bars or something, for example.
Yeah, just for example. Yeah. I just like watching Cal, like watching Oklahoma is like going back to an era where releve mattered and precision and execution mattered, which is what we love about college gymnastics. So also Jordan Weber's Arkansas in 4th.
After they've had 2 meets like Florida. Casual program record on the road, 197.525 this past week to tie Alabama, which that was one of those meets where you're like, this is going to end in a tie. But halfway through that last rotation, you were like, I would bet $1 million this meet's going to end in a tie. And then it did. But yeah, they've started exceptionally well. And like we talked about, Jordan Weber is most known for, I think her first mark as a college gymnastics coach was UCLA, you're going to like pick it up on floor. Like the endurance on floor, we're going to like work on that. And so that like preparation on floor, I think is not a surprise for a Jordan Weber team. But what we've seen a couple years recently is that the consistency on bars and beam was not there at the beginning of the season. And they would have counting fall meets that they would kind of a hole that they would have to dig themselves out of later in the season and scores that they had to drop. And they've started from this year a much more confident looking place on bars and beam. And I think that's made the biggest difference in the ranking so far. It's kind of exactly the opposite of what we were saying with UCLA. Like the UCLA hasn't had the consistency there and Arkansas has, and that's why I think most of all why they're ranked in 4th.
Yeah. We now have an important segment to get to. The Clemson leotard, ranked first for controversy this week.
You and these Clemson leotards. I feel like we need a Clemson leotard segment now.
It's
okay,
not
tell me about it, because I watched this meet and it made 0 impression because of me. So let me know what's going on with Clemson.
Yeah, I know which is why I made some stills so you could see. So basically, this Leo, which also they have great gymnastics. So if you're a visual listener, we're going to watch one of these great routines. But I think that this is basically what they have is they have a purple version of the WCC, the Simone Leo, which I believe at the time it was white with like a black BDSM bodice situation going on, like a halter. At the time when they wore it, it was like, I think 2021 championships, they wore this. But they just did it in purple, but they made like a sheer lined mid area, the top. And then they have like a bodice, like they made the bra area like sparkles. And it was that people had a lot of feelings about this leotard. And so we have a letter from Lauren.
Okay. Lauren says, "Hey guys, love you and love the show. I'm not sure if this is the right place to go. It's always the right place to go. But I wanted to reach out about something really concerning in the gymnastics community. I run an Instagram page for Leos, so I'm always looking at Leos and posting about them. I realize that Clemson's new purple Leos aren't everyone's cup of tea, but I noticed an immense amount of misogyny going on in the comments and on the gymnastics subreddit in regard to this Leo. I know you guys have a ton of influence in the gymnastics world." Oh, do we? This is very flattering. So I just wanted to reach out and maybe spread some awareness. For example, people are saying that they should be on stripper poles. They are calling the gymnasts sleazy, and they are sexualizing them based on what they're wearing. This is concerning, right? It's not just me. When is it okay to sexualize a young woman because she is wearing mesh? I didn't see any nip slips, LOL, so I guess I just don't see the problem. I feel so bad for the Clemson girls for being treated so terribly for wearing something they didn't even have control of. Anyway, love you guys.
So yeah, I feel like this is a great letter. Let that sink in. And this is, I hate when people talk about the athletes this way. And also, this isn't the worst thing that's happening. Like some programs are getting threats because of things that their coaches have done, because of decisions from the administration that they had nothing to do with. So I would remind everyone to not talk about the athletes this way, because your private Facebook group is public. And it sucks that people are talking about people that way. And I that letter makes the point. So and this is the thing that I feel like is in part genius about this. Everyone's talking about Clemson again.
Yeah, I mean, you do, like, especially that first week, Leo, you don't pick that one if you don't want to be like, you don't want to be the topic of conversation.
This was genius. Like, everyone's talking about Clemson. So if you didn't watch the meet, because of this Leo. And I also it's funny because like I don't mind this Leo at all. I wish the bra part wasn't like sparkly, but I kind of like this Leo. I find the other things much more offensive than this Leo is. And it's a genius move. Everyone's talking about Clemson again. So, this is, remember when Lady Gaga wore her meat dress? I mean, gave birth to sparkles on a TV show. Like, this is a technique. We have important opportunities for comedy.
Yes.
That we need to discuss.
We had some solid moments. First of all, I want to talk about, I don't know if you watched the intros from the meet at Denver, where Oklahoma, UCLA, and Stanford were at Denver. They were doing the intros. Oklahoma's walking out. Reagan, some of the members of the team, but most specifically Reagan Smith, almost tripped over some loose crutches that were just lying on the ground. They were just some stray crutches lying on the ground because it's gymnastics, and of course there were. And she was like very focused. You could see her walking up, and she had like a beam routine level of focus of like, don't trip on those crutches. I see those crutches. Don't trip on those crutches. And then almost tripped on those crutches. But I felt like I was laughing because I thought that would be the most gymnast thing ever, would be to get injured by someone else's crutches.
Yes. That would
You got injured by someone else's injury. Would happen, I'm sure has happened. Another thing. If you were watching the Cal Washington meet on the Pac-12 network with Jim on the call, right before they went to commercial, they were talking about the Cal gymnasts and that bear head that they wear. And you may have been barely paying attention, but you may have heard Jim say, and I quote, "Every man's got to have a dream. Mine is to be a furry." And then they immediately cut to commercial. And it was like, wait, what is Jim? Is this just sharing time at this point? You're learning things about Jim we never knew.
Oh my god, I love that so much. Okay, my Hero of Non-Gymnastics award for this week, opportunity for comedy, but not comedy because I love it so much, is Gabby Ortiz of Michigan. Have you been paying attention to how she mounts the beam?
I am now because we're watching it for our visual listeners. Like, that is correct.
Right. It's not actually how she mounts the beam. It's how she stands there before she mounts the beam, which is basically she does arm in the air, 3 body waves to grab the beam. And it's like, you think of people doing their choreography like onto the floor, a little turn, and then FIG had to make that rule that's like, don't do an actual skill when you're coming onto the floor. You can dance onto the floor, but no actual skills. But this is so extra and awesome and such an announcement of like, oh yeah, I'm about to do beam. Prepare yourselves for my amazingness. I love it. I'm obsessed with it. This needs to be a trend. I stand behind.
If you're gonna have a beam mount that's not like the actual skill is not like the most extravagant or the most interesting, you better start with this. Like, that's maybe the rule. Because we've always said we want more interesting beam mounts rather than just like sitting there on the beam. Like, if you're gonna mount with an A skill, you have to do at least a body wave.
Yes.
Minimum 1 body wave before getting on the beam.
I would love to see salute, then just shimmy, jump. Jump to straddle.
Pre-mount artistry deductions. This is what we're talking about, you guys.
Yes. Pre-mount, you guys.
Yeah.
This is the mount. It's before she touches the beam.
Commitment to a character pre-mount. That needs to be a column on the artistry checklist.
Okay. Also, KJ Johnson of LSU working a wedgie out of a crack during her floor routine, putting it in her choreo. Let me just do a turn and pull my Leo out of my butt. Oh, peak gymnastics moment right there. So good. If you like this kind of thing where we go through like every moment of a meet in detail like this is what
talk about wedgies and body waves and
who
furries.
Said they didn't want to be a furry. This is what we do in College and Cocktails. So if you want more of this, it's all this the whole time. And we answer your questions. Okay, Spencer, you put together something so magical this week.
Thank you.
It makes me so happy.
You mean my ensemble? No, you're talking about something for gymnastics? Okay.
Yeah.
We had a very important addition to the pantheon of great beam saves this week that I think needs to be acknowledged and celebrated for what a legendary moment that will go down in history it is. Because Bailey Bunn of Kentucky had a save on her acro series on beam that was among the longest and best and most dramatic saves we've ever had. And I think it needs to go up there toward the top of the rankings, really. 1 for length, because this wobble goes on for a solid 5 seconds where she is wobbling and ends up staying on the beam somehow. And also, I mean, extra bonus points for successfully performing a full hokey pokey while wobbling on the beam. Like, the left leg goes in, the right leg goes in, both arms. She shakes them all about. She turns herself around. And just like,
she literally walks.
Damn, that's what it's all about, Jessica.
Full turn.
This is what it's all about.
This is how good this save is there's a woman in the crowd directly behind the end of the beam in a full LSU like tiger like jacket.
Furry.
Yeah, furry. That stands up and gives her a standing ovation after this. And she's a Kentucky gymnast at LSU. That's how excellent this. Bailey Bund going down in history. But who else is in the pantheon of beam saves?
Yeah, we need to establish, because, if you've listened to this show before, for me, it's not real until you make a ranking and it doesn't count. So we need to situate this in the ranking. So also like a top nominee, I think, is Ashikawa from 2021 Worlds. For back flexibility and amount, I think this is an extremely important showing. Because how are you staying on this beam?
She full matrixes, is in a back bend with one leg in the air, and stays on the beam. It's amazing. And witnessing that in person was even more incredible than watching it in your GIF pantheon. Who else is in the list?
So in this list, I will always include now Pitt head coach Casey Jo McGee, from when she returned to Elite after college and was doing the most exciting, interesting, creative beam routine that we've seen in Elite. But at one point at Classic, on a side semi, she had one of those saves where it's like, no, that's not physically possible. Your center of gravity is not at a place where you can keep that on a balance beam. And she's swimming and she's leaning and she's getting ever closer to the edge of the beam and somehow still stays on.
It's a side flip to magic is basically what it is. Oh, Casey Jo McGee's beam. You guys, it's everything. The only thing missing from that beam routine, she had a full mount, tuck full mount. She had a backspin. She had the side flip. Basically like some kind of side roll was the only thing missing that I could have possibly. God, I love that. I could just watch Casey Jo McGee's beam. Her Elite comeback beam is basically my Mount Rushmore of beams.
Yeah.
Just FYI.
I really love this save because it kind of looks like, when like a toddler's trying to swim for the first time and they've seen other people swim, but they don't actually know how to do it. So they're just, the arms are going kind of. Is that?
I think it looks more like when a dog, if you just hold them over water.
And like the instincts take over. Yeah.
They try to dog paddle. Yeah. What about Sky Blakely 2019?
This is Sky Blakely Jr. is one of my favorites on a wolf turn. Mostly because, again, length of save, but also the vertical kick to keep herself on the beam after the wolf turn is really a solid move.
It was almost Nastia's layout to throw yourself 2 foot to throw yourself sideways to handstand, split handstand to stand back up, which is
maybe, where do we rank the Bailey Bund save in terms of what we've seen so far? Because I think it's higher than a couple. I don't think it can rank higher than Nastia's improvised handstand because she goes into like an actual skill.
The thing that I love about Nastia's improvised handstand is everyone's done that on beam. Everyone has had that moment where you throw yourself in a handstand to save. Not necessarily on beam, but also if you're a gymnast in life, this has happened to you. Mm-hmm. So I rank that very high. But maybe
what you said makes me think you rank it low because you were kind of like, everybody's done this.
Well, yeah, but it got caught in a meet and it's Nastia. So it's a beautiful handstand too. But I'm going to put it in like fourth because we have a couple more to talk about.
Okay. I want to talk about, there are so many Peng Peng Lee college beam saves that she did on her lay pike series. But I think my favorite one is the one that we're looking at right now where she, again, had to do suddenly, like she's 100% going to fall. And then is like, you know what I could do? A half turn.
And then myself around in
I'm going to kick myself into a half turn.
On 1 foot, yes.
It's like, I've seen people who can't really do turns do like an L turn or a wolf turn where they just kick themselves around. And Peng is like, oh, I've seen these basics do that. I'll do that to keep myself on the beam.
And then we have Nastia's when the bee is attacked.
Yes. very important Nastia getting attacked by bees, where she spends 7 to 8 minutes just swatting bees away from her face
It's
after
because
she performs a punch front.
a punch front. The punch front is so basic. Nastia is just so much fancier than a basic punch front. So, yeah, it wasn't a swarm of spiders like has happened to our precious Flavia many times.
Yeah.
But she was attacked by beams. But nothing except Ashikawa's comes close to Suni's epic save.
Yes, Suni's pack rims save from 2018, before everyone knew who Suni was, when she was just, a gymternet beloved, wobbling essentially off the end of the beam on her 2-foot layout. She is leaning back. She is swimming. 75 to 80% of her body is off the back of the beam, at least. But she kicks herself
bouncing on the beam end cap.
Yeah, she's on the cap.
Her foot sideways. Her heel.
Yeah. If the cap had popped off, like happens at NCAA meets, sometimes she would be off the beam.
Yeah.
That was the only thing saving her. She kicks herself back on the beam after like 4 or 5 kicks, keeping toe point the entire time, which I think is bonus points.
With applause from the audience, which is another why you get in the Pantheon. But number one,
yeah. I mean, number one of all time always is Jordan Childs Wolf Kino. Nothing is touching this. No. This is the standard upon which everything else is judged, because she turned her mistake into an E element that she wasn't intending to do, which is like the most difficult possible, not the most difficult possible element.
Literally a triple turn
an accidental triple turn, because she was just standing up out of that wolf turn and was like, here we go.
It was like a bid from her to be like, rhythmic gymnastics have, they get credit for doing different level changes in a turn. Why don't we have that on beam? And by the way.
Yeah.
So what is in your Pantheon? Send in your videos and gifts.
Obviously, for me, ranking, Wolf Kino is 1. Suni Kicks is 2.
Ashikawa 3.
I'm going to say...
No.
I don't know. I'm thinking, does Bailey Bunn beat Ashikawa's kicks?
No, because Ashikawa literally...
Yeah,
I
true.
still don't know how she did. Like, literally, her whole body was off the side of the beam. It was...
Yeah. Okay. Well, and then Bailey Bunn in 4th, or Nastia's handstand in 4th? I kind of think Nastia's handstand in 4th, Bailey Bunn 5th.
And Bailey Bunn, yeah.
Okay. I feel like as long as we've come together to create a top 5, I feel okay about the order of the universe now.
Let's talk about the elite gymnastics news. So very exciting is that high bar world champion Brody Malone returned to competition. This is so exciting because you remember how he had that horrific high bar leg knee injury, multiple surgeries. He competed 3 events at an invitational at club meet. So he did rings, P-bars, and the pommel horse. And, thank God he just jumped off, did not dismount on rings. Mm-hmm. But he did a P-bars dismount. He just did a layout, but it was beautiful. So the fact that he can do a layout from, how high is that? 10 feet in the air and land? That's great progress. I'm super stoked for him. Like, people were so excited for him.
It's one of those things where when we first saw this injury, if you were to say, oh, he's never doing gymnastics again, you would be forgiven for assuming that. Like, it's the thing fluff pieces are made of. Because like every gymnastics fluff piece, when someone comes back from an injury, is like, the doctor said I would never do gymnastics again, and now I'm at the Olympics. But this is like, it's the stuff fluff pieces are made of, because you like legitimately, that would have been a very reasonable reaction to that injury. Like, oh God, no, stop forever.
Like, amputate / you might not walk right / and then they're an Olympic champion, which has happened, several times, or at least they've come back to an Olympic final. So stoked for him. And also he got engaged recently. Oh, love. So nice. British team news, which we talked about a little bit earlier. So Olympic team bronze medalist Amelia Morgan, who competed... Amelie. Sorry, did I say Amelia? Like,
you did.
Amelia? Sorry, Amelie Morgan. Did you read that book ever? Anyway, Amelia Bedelia.
She would misunderstand idioms.
Yes.
to comedic effect.
Yes.
Much like Jessica.
Yeah. That's why I feel like I just was like, Amelie Morgan, who competes at Utah and is a rock solid ninja at all times, is wisely going back to compete at English championships. She is on the start list, announced that she's doing this. Also, Charlotte Booth, we discussed about as in like a badass elite, especially on bars and beam.
Mhm.
She is and she trains at Florida at Brandy Johnson, also a ninja in her own right. So both competing at English championships. I think Charlotte Booth is doing Welsh too. So I feel like, there's a big spot because there's a question mark of whether or not Gadarova's coming back from her ACL tear. So
Yeah,
it's exciting times. Connor McLean announced again her intention to return to elite and try to make the Paris Olympic team in a NOLA.com article. She also talked about coming back from those 2 surgeries that she had in 2003. So last year.
2003, before she was born.
2023. My God, Spencer. You know what happened is we actually had to pause the podcast for like 30 minutes because of internet problems. So now we've been recording we've been engaged for much longer than we normally do. So I'm hanging on.
Jessica's way of saying I've hit my wall, and you don't even know how wall I've hit.
2023. So according to an ESPN article, she had a cyst removed and part of a disc in her lower back removed, and then another a metal plate removed from her right hand. So she's had a lot of stuff last year. Now she's back and competed on floor and beam and bars.
Bars beam floor this past week. Yeah.
Yep.
Even though they took out the 2-footed layout from her beam routine.
Spencer is never going to
not happening. Look at Alexis Ortega. Sometimes she falls on that back handspring and noti, and it's been in her routine for years, and they're not taking it out.
Why don't you just believe in her and her 2-foot layout?
Really?
Like Peng Peng. Nobody took that thing out, and Connor
Peng Peng's was a lot safer than Connor's.
I know.
She was like, you know what I'll do? I'm going to pike this down every time so I stay on the beat. I don't want them to make... If the solution is make Connor's layout basic so that she can keep it on the beam every time, then I don't want it.
Yeah.
Perfect layout or nothing.
Exactly. No basicness. Do you remember Courtney McGregor?
Do I remember Courtney McGregor?
Thank you.
Only the most important gymnast in New Zealand history, and also a gem of a person.
Yes. She's an Olympian, in 2016, she went to Boise State, graduated from Boise State. She is a current medical student. And she tore her Achilles when she was at Boise, so she didn't make the Tokyo Olympics, but she came back to training this summer while in medical school. Have I emphasized that enough? She's in medical school. And so she says that she got good feedback from Gymnastics New Zealand when she came back. In her videos, like, she's got all her skills back. She looks great. But then she was told that she is not allowed to compete at the Oceania, which is the continental championship that is an Olympic qualifier. So the only ways left to make an Olympics is the continental championships, and which we had ours, the Pan Ams, and the World Cup Series. So she was told the criteria for Gymnastics New Zealand says that athletes who competed representing any country from 2022 forward can do the trial to compete in the Oceania Championships or the World Cup spots. The thing that's weird about this and doesn't really make any sense is, she took the last 3 years off because she was in medical school, but she's their last Olympian and she's showing that she has her skills back. But what's weird is that Gymnastics New Zealand just accepted Georgia Rose Brown from Australia, who's not eligible to compete for New Zealand. So Georgia Rose Brown changed countries. But
she has an FIG license now for New Zealand, correct?
Yes, but she can't. I think she does she? Do you want to look really quick? I remember she announced it. But she can't actually represent New Zealand because she represented Australia at World Championships in 2002. Therefore, she cannot represent New Zealand until 2025 because of the 3-year rule. And the rule is that if you've competed for another country in a world championships, an Olympics, or a continental championships, World Cups don't count, you have a 3-year ban on competing for another country. So because Georgia,
unless it's waived, which is one of the things. So if both National Olympic Committees and the FIG and an IOC committee all say it's okay, you can get there is a possibility. It sounds very complicated to get past the 3-year thing, but I just want to say, like, for the officialness of the rule, there is a sentence at the end of that. It's like, unless you get special dispensation from all of these organizations not to follow the 3-year rule.
Which I feel like is so... it should be a rule and there should be no exceptions.
It's a rule or it's not. Yeah.
Or it's not. It's just so according to the rule, she's not, unless she got special permission, but we don't know if she has.
We don't know. I'm just adding for completeness of context.
Yeah. So I think that if Georgia is allowed to compete at the trial, then I would hope that then she got special dispensation to actually represent New Zealand, because otherwise it's against, why would you let someone who's ready and compete for New Zealand not compete like Courtney McGregor, when you have someone competing. So
yeah, I just don't understand these rules in general. They seem so self-defeating. Like, oh, you can only compete. Like, why not just have who's the best person?
Right. Like, this would be like USA Gymnastics being like, oh, Gabby Douglas, we see all your skills. We see how great you're doing, but you can't compete because you haven't competed the last 2 years, or you haven't come to camp enough. So even though
it's kind of what USAG did last year with like Suni, and she hadn't been to camp, but she had to get her score at this, but at least she had an opportunity to get her score. Like, they should give, if you want to have this rule, then there should be an opportunity for Courtney McGregor to have a trial and show readiness or get a score or something to say, yeah, I'm actually, like, if the goal of this rule is to keep people who aren't ready from just showing up and competing, then you need to have an opportunity for people who are ready to show that they are ready to show up and compete. Right. And if you're not going to have that, then it's just dumbness.
This is what I agree with the way Marta always did things. It's the best person at the time. Like, well, not always did things, but most of the time. The best person at the time who's ready gets the spot. Yeah. So, Gym Turnet news to discuss. So the Vietnamese coach has been suspended. So Nguyen Tu Huy Yung, there were allegations that she misappropriated gymnast Pham Nhu Phong's prize money. Phong alleged on Monday that Tu Huy coerced her into giving the coach 10% of her medal winnings and 30 to 50% of her spot bonuses over an extended period. Another coach in the Hanoi facility, Nguyen Ha Thien, was also temporarily suspended for coercing Phong to give up her prize money. That's according to Vin Express. So, I would like to see that happen to gyms who don't pass the money on to their coaches who actually coached the gymnast in Olympic Games. Like, keep some of it because you're the gym, but
or federations, that don't end up compensating the way they said they were going to compensate in a timely fashion.
Yeah, or the countries who claw back the money that they gave to coaches and gymnasts for winning, and then they don't do well the next Olympics, and then they take all their money back. Yeah, that's why you should always put your money in an offshore account. Never leave it in the Bank of China. That's all I'm saying.
Jessica's financial advice for gymnasts. It's going to go great.
Offshore accounts.
Yeah. You've been watching too much of Payback.
So we have exciting news. ESPN ABC, when they had the big girl ABC meet on the main ABC, the college gymnastics meet, viewership record, the most watched regular season live NCAA meet in ESPN history, that peaked at 792,000 viewers.
Yes, good. Caveat, most watched. It is also the second on ABC ever.
Oh, that's right. It is the second regular season.
It's the second of two, and it beat the previous one by about 10,000 viewers. So it's like good, met expectations, retained the audience, which I always think is good for a TV audience. Like, if you retained over 2 years, that's good because like, you know, who watches things on TV anymore? So I think that's solid, but just for context, you know, there have been 2 and it was the same. So it's like, I think that's a meeting expectations, but not exceeding expectations kind of viewership. And it was going up against the footballs, which is the point why they put it up. Because they're like, you know who doesn't like football? People like Spencer. Maybe people like Spencer would like to watch a gymnastics meet, and we could do something called counter programming.
Yes. Oh my God. And thank God we didn't have to watch any freaking golf updates in the middle of it or whatever nonsense. Oh my God. I hate that so much. It also wasn't prime time. So Maggie Nichols' book is out. Have you guys gotten yours? I ordered mine, waiting for a ride. Unstoppable. She was on CBS this morning with Oprah Winfrey's best friend, Gail, and discussed a bit of the book. So yeah, if you haven't gotten it yet, we'll need to do a book club and discuss. There is a great article on the robot judging that MIT has out. And we'll put a link to it. It's Technology Review. It's so in depth on the robot judging, and I recommend it. It's great. We've gone through most of the stuff that's on there, but one of the things they talk about is how the gymnasts are supposed to be sent their robot judging results and videos, and so they followed up on that, and gymnasts were like, nope, never got that. The federation was like, we don't remember getting that. So, and there's a new person in charge of robot judging now. No confirmation about the use of robot judging in the Olympics. Remember in Tokyo, it had already been used, and then in Tokyo it wasn't being used. And so I asked in Tokyo, I was like, hey, you guys, why aren't you using this when you used it in 2019 at Worlds? And they just said it wasn't ready. And I was like, but it was already used. So we'll see what happens.
Olympics are soon, though.
Yeah,
seems like if you were going to use it, you'd want to know.
Yep.
Whether we're going to use
and a lot of discussion of the thing that I'm always talking about, which is how do the athletes retain the rights to their oon intellectual property, which is how their body moves, their gymnastics, because this is what Fujitsu, who is the company that is doing the robot judging, they are using the data that they collect from the robot judging, which is the gymnast's intellectual property, their own body movements, their own gymnastic skills, to develop robots. So, and other things. But this is one of the things that's super important is how are they going to use this in their machine learning? How did the gymnasts protect the rights and also able to profit off that? Because Fujitsu is going to use this, for years and years. This is the same kind of stuff that's going into AI. When you Google something in AI, how is the person that wrote the article for the New York Times getting credit for that kind of stuff? So they're using it in large language models, and that's discussed. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, check it out. We also finally have an answer to why are gymnasts so clumsy, Spencer?
Do tell.
So Yuka she's the head of Level Up Neuro. She trains like neuro training for gymnasts, like coaching your brain first to help your gymnastics. And it has a lot to do with safety and stuff like that. So she talked about the reason that gymnasts are so clumsy is because gymnasts are trained to focus so specifically and narrowly. Exactly. They are trained to ignore the periphery, ignore everything around you, which is one of my favorite things when we see the college gymnastics distraction beam routines where you have people all over the beam screaming and waving noodles and laying under the beam and, doing all that stuff. And you're trained to
waving noodles. I imagined when you said that, like pasta. Like plates of pasta, waving some noodles at your beam routine. I think that would be a great distraction method.
Yeah, so I was like, oh my God, this makes so much sense.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, that makes sense.
Another gymnast has learned. You guys, this is what happens when the internet goes out and then you have to take a pause and you go too long.
This is what happens in literally every episode we've ever done.
Another gymnast has joined the long pantheon of male gymnasts who have a hard time keeping their pants on during routines. This time, in the great sport of swinging rings,
A gymnast lost his pants at some point during the routine. They descended to his ankles, but despite this, he still did a double front half to face plant with pants around his ankles.
Yeah.
So, first of all, swinging rings should be added to the Olympics as a gender neutral sport because it's so great. Thanks to the Swiss for keeping the sport going. But you guys, what's with the pants? And male gymnasts.
What's with the pants?
They're like.
And on that note, I'm surprised this doesn't happen more, actually.
It happens at least once a year, Spencer.
I know. That's way lower than I would expect.
I bet we only get a video of it once a year, but it actually happens like in every boys gymnastics meet.
Right. Like you must double front your pants off like all the time.
You guys, remember College and Cocktails is Friday, January 26th, 7 p.m.-ish Pacific, Denver versus Oklahoma, Alabama versus Florida. Join us live. We discuss it as a family. We have our exhibition mocktail to drink all together, and it's so fun. We love our Friday night College and Cocktails. It's just so fun to do. Also, a reminder, remember to subscribe to get your automatic downloads. Especially do you know that Apple changed their download thing? So it used to if I subscribe, I could say automatically download these episodes for me so I could get on a plane and listen, or I could be somewhere with no access to internet and I would have my podcast episodes. Well, they changed that. So I have to go through manual and then download everything I want. So make sure you guys, it's set so you have all of your GymCastic and your College and Cocktails episodes ready. Don't get stuck on a plane with no podcast like I did. So until next.
So this is a story about you because you've told the story a couple times as though it happened to someone who wasn't you.
First of all, it has happened to other people. I have a friend that just took a trip to Japan and was stuck on a very long flight because I've done it 3 times with no podcast downloaded. So until next week, please remember to take off on gay, split on rights. We'll see you on Friday night for College and Cocktails, and thanks for listening.